Story 1. Today, we begin with good news from the lunar frontier as NASA's Artemis II mission successfully splashes down after a historic trip to the moon. Officials describe the return as an incredible end to an incredible mission, marking the start of a new era for space exploration where humans will venture further than ever before. The community reaction highlights the immense relief and awe surrounding the mission, with one commenter noting this is the first high-risk mission NASA has undertaken in over 50 years, where the risks were openly acknowledged. Another user reflected on a sense of national pride and wonder, feeling that America still possesses the scientific powerhouse capabilities to prioritize curiosity and innovation. A third observer marveled at the sheer power of mathematics and science, emphasizing how precise equations allowed the team to pinpoint the landing location down to the minute. Let's move from the vastness of space to the simplicity of a game board. Story 2. The discussion shifts to a fascinating puzzle titled 1D Chess, a variant where the game is played on a single line, removing the complexity of two dimensions while retaining strategic depth. The article explains that players can move pieces forward or backward, jumping over others, with the goal of checkmating the enemy king on this narrow track. Community members are already diving deep into the mechanics, with one user suggesting a similar abstract game called Mind Chess, where players verbally call out checks until one declares checkmate. Another commenter points out that this specific variant was originally described by Martin Gardner in 1980 and speculates on how changing the board length might alter the winning strategies. A final note from the thread compares the linear movement to a 1D Pac-Man game, highlighting the nostalgic appeal of these simplified mechanics. From abstract games, we turn to a very practical and controversial modification for a beloved piece of hardware. Story 3. A user has sparked a debate by sharing their decision to file down the sharp corners of their MacBook unibody chassis to prevent wrist pain. They explain that while the design is industrial, the sharp edge near the notch is uncomfortable, so they customize the tool to fit their needs by carefully blending the curves. The comments reveal a mix of reactions, with one person sharing how coworkers immediately jumped to questions about voiding warranties and structural integrity. Another user praises the mindset of modifying tools to suit individual needs, arguing that the debate over the original design is less interesting than the act of customization itself. A third commenter shares a strong personal grievance, stating they couldn't tolerate the sharp edges or the glare, finding the machines nearly unusable for developers. Next, we look at a significant update for a popular networking protocol following a bureaucratic hurdle. Story 4. WireGuard has released a new update for Windows after a resolution to a Microsoft signing issue, following a period where the project was stalled by administrative paperwork. The creator noted that the Microsoft bureaucracy was dealt with quickly thanks to public attention, allowing them to remove support for older Windows versions and tackle challenging toolchain updates. The community is celebrating the return of the Windows release train, but also using the opportunity to discuss the broader threats to open-source software on the platform. One user questions whether the issue would have been fixed without the public outcry, while another argues that code signing requirements are a strategic vector for Microsoft to stifle software variety. A final, passionate comment frames the lack of respect for individual users as an evil abuse of power by large corporations. Speaking of custom tools, someone has decided to take a much more extreme approach to browser extensions. Story 5. A developer has embarked on an ambitious experiment to install every single Firefox extension available in the store, totaling over 84,000 add-ons. They discovered that while the number sounds small, scraping the API required clever workarounds like changing sort orders to access the long tail of extensions that aren't immediately visible. The thread quickly turns into a nostalgic reflection on the toolbar wars of the Internet Explorer era, where every installer fought for space on the browser. Another user jokingly claims a middle finger emoji sticker award for their participation in the chaos, while a third draws a parallel between the over-engineered browser and complex service meshes in enterprise software. On a more positive note for hardware enthusiasts, a keyboard manufacturer is opening up their design files. Story 6. Keychron has released production-grade hardware design files for their keyboards and mice, allowing the community to study, remix, and design compatible accessories. The project is source available, permitting both personal and commercial use for compatible items, though it prohibits copying and selling the original Keychron products. Users are responding with appreciation for the gesture, noting that open hardware ensures legacy products remain viable even after discontinuation. One commenter mentions they have a jar full of replacement switches and don't need a new keyboard, while another wonders why there aren't more physical stores for trying out different key switches. A third user points out that competitors like Wooting have been doing this for years, suggesting this is a growing trend in the community. From the world of hardware, we travel to the wilds of Uganda to observe a disturbing shift in primate behavior. Story 7. Researchers report that the world's largest known group of wild chimpanzees in Uganda is locked in an 8-year civil war, resulting in numerous killings, including many infants. This sudden violence, which has seen the group split and turn on each other, may provide crucial insights into how early human conflict developed. The discussion highlights the tragic nature of the event, with one commenter referencing Richard Wrangham's theory that coalitionary killing is an evolved trait selected for in primates. Another suggests that a recent respiratory epidemic might have contributed to the societal destabilization that led to the violence. A final note adds historical context, recalling similar conflicts observed by Jane Goodall and the killer ape theory. Now we address a critical security incident affecting popular system monitoring tools. Story 8. The popular tools CPU-Z and HW monitor were compromised after attackers hijacked part of the CPU-ID backend, turning trusted download links into malware delivery mechanisms. The breach affected a secondary API feature for about 6 hours, causing antivirus alerts to trigger for users downloading what they thought were legitimate updates. Community members are sharing details of the incident, with one verifying that the malware was indeed a fake installer disguised as HYNFO. Another user points out the unfortunate side effect where false positives from aggressive antivirus software can make legitimate detection difficult, while a third salutes the human shields who rely on software releases less than a month old. In the realm of open-source development, the Linux kernel is setting new guidelines for the use of artificial intelligence. Story 9. The Linux kernel community has published guidance allowing developers to use AI tools for contributions, provided they strictly follow licensing and attribution rules. The new policy mandates that AI agents cannot add signed off by tags, as only humans can legally certify the developer certificate of origin, placing full responsibility on the human submitter. Developers are expected to review all AI-generated code and include an assisted by tag to track the evolving role of AI in the development process. The comments express relief that the rules are refreshingly normal, with one user noting that the human submitter must take full responsibility for the code and its licensing compliance. Another commenter appreciates that the policy avoids demagoguery and sets a clear precedent for the industry. Finally, we look at a global supply chain issue involving a critical resource that is surprisingly hard to replace. Story 10. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has disrupted the supply chain for helium, causing prices to spike as major producers declare force majeure. Helium is a byproduct of natural gas extraction, and with Qatar controlling a significant portion of the supply, the closure of key shipping routes has created a looming shortage. The discussion highlights the economic nature of the problem, with one user noting that the U.S. previously sold off its strategic reserves at a loss because politicians dismissed helium as a party balloon resource. Another commenter explains that the issue is not a lack of physics or extraction capability, but rather an engineering and money problem where only a small fraction of plants currently recover the gas. A final perspective argues that the market will eventually correct itself once prices rise enough to justify the investment in new extraction infrastructure. We end with a meta-commentary on the very act of writing a title to get attention. Story 11. The discussion features a meta-article titled, a compelling title that is cryptic enough to get you to take action on it, which analyzes the structure of engaging headlines. The piece breaks down how a bold first sentence, a steering second sentence, and a tantalizing third sentence can draw readers in, serving as a guide for effective writing. The comments quickly turn into a critique of the article itself, with one user comparing it to Charlie Brooker's satire on news reporting and another suggesting the template is a sign of AI generation. A third commenter points out the irony of the post by linking it to a previous thread where every comment describes itself, highlighting the cyclical nature of online discourse. And finally, a beloved open-source tool has taken a controversial turn toward a commercial model. Story 12. Popular JSON formatter Chrome extension has been closed as an open-source project, with the developer shifting to a commercial model to build a more comprehensive API tool. The creator left the original source code online for users to fork and has published a classic version for those who prefer a simple, open-source local tool. The community reaction is a mix of nostalgia and concern, with one user recalling the developer's past promise to never add spyware or sell the project. Another user clarifies that the new version includes an optional donation appeal rather than malicious adware, while a third argues that users should generally avoid auto-updating extensions and install them locally to avoid such ideological shifts. That's the diff for today. Drop a comment on which story surprised you most. Like and subscribe for daily tech news.